Well, what do you think of the...
When he talks, people listen. Ray Dalio, the man who founded Bridgewater Associates in 1975 from his two-bedroom apartment and built it into the biggest hedge fund in the world. Despite the escalating US-China conflict, the American billionaire is putting his money on China. Bridgewater was the first big hedge fund to gain access to the Chinese market. Dalio himself has been going to China since 1984.
When I started going since that time, the income has increased by 26 times. The share of world GDP went from 2% to 22%. The poverty rate, 88% of the population was in poverty. Less than 1% is in poverty now, okay? And that happened with now 1.4 billion people. The size of the miracle is quite something. I've been studying Chinese history back to 960, actually 900, but 960 was the Sung dynasty, and I watched the evolution. And I would say that there is an approach to life which has Confucian roots, okay? That has to do with how individuals relate to society and how the society works. That's a whole conversation, but it has to do with knowing what your role is, getting a good education, knowing what your role is and your responsibilities, playing that role well, okay? Being organized and so on. It starts with the family. The family is the unit. And if you know how to relate to your role in the family and be a good family member and you understand that, and then that's carried forward to the society as a whole. So what is Chinese, I think, and what is the Chinese culture? Largely has to do with Confucian roots and how to get things done. And it's more top-down, okay? The United States is very much more bottom-up. The United States is a country of immigrants, of coming from all different particular places and all different approaches. It's a bottom-up type of system. What you have is the conflict of cultures to some extent between this bottom-up type of system and this more top-down type of system. Of course, from a Chinese perspective, the Chinese want the government to cooperate with the businesses, wants to cooperate, and that hierarchy works that way. And at the same time, what you're seeing is a creativity now and an entrepreneurship that's taking place. So you're seeing venture capital and great ideas.
So China is hungry.
Well, China wants to be all that it can be, right? And so naturally, there's that competition. And then when you look at it, each has its pros and its cons, right? So like big data. China has, in an era of artificial intelligence and free access to big data, that produces competitive advantages. Issues like the privacy issue, cuts both ways in terms of commerce, so it's got pros and cons. So when you look at this, it's sort of a competition of approaches to life, right?
So given your deep learnings about China, any advice you would give the Trump administration or future US lawmakers about how to deal with Chinese leadership?
I would say that a tough negotiation in which there's an exchange of things is good. That's appropriate. That's respected. Be a tough negotiator. When you go beyond that, so that there are threats or disrespect and harm, that naturally you should expect compensating reactions. And what we worry about, and I think is a reality, is that in this new world of adversely affecting each other economically and hurting each other's business, each tries to think, now, how can I do the other the maximum harm? And the Chinese are clever at doing that. So you have to think about how to achieve that balance in the best possible way and emphasize the win-wins rather than the lose-loses.
So are you saying there's a lack of respect on both sides right now?
No, I wouldn't characterize it as a lack of respect. I would say that there's probably a style difference, and respect wouldn't be the word.
What would be the word?
Well, maybe the word is decorum. Not very, very different in style, okay? Differences in what is made public. I think there's a lot of respect, but there is not a lot of what I would say proper diplomacy, and also not probably enough empathy, and not enough emphasis on the win-win. I think that both parties see the other for what they are.
As an investor, you say not investing in China is very risky. Where do you see the opportunities in China?
Well, the opportunities are going to come from the two very different types of economies that exist in China. You have the old economies and you have the new economies, right? You have these state-owned enterprises and economies that real estate that is now, I think, overpriced and is expensive. The areas that did well in the early part of China, really sort of up until now, that they are more indebted and they're overbuilt and they have to go through a restructuring. Those will be the worst areas in China, that old economy, but on the other hand, they could be very good investment areas too. We see that sometimes that restructuring creates opportunities to buy assets or buy investments at attractive prices. So that's the old area. And then of course there's the new area, which are the inventiveness that we're seeing, throughout, but also particularly like in Shenzhen, creative entrepreneurial ventures where there's great ideas, particularly in artificial intelligence, big data, but it carries on to biotechnology, fintech, all those areas which are those new cutting edge areas that are being released for the creativity. Those are very exciting areas. There's also a lot of money chasing those areas. So one has to be somewhat careful. I would say the best thing to do, generally speaking, for most investors, is to think about how they have that more balanced all-weather approach, so that by taking that balanced portfolio and having that in China, just like there should be a balanced portfolio in other parts, diversification and balance are the most important things in creating a portfolio anywhere.
Don't go away. More of the exclusive interview with Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, in just a moment.
There is a debt economic restructuring that is going on in China. So the ability to stimulate and to deal with that well is, I think, China's biggest risk.
Managing Asia will be right back. When you look at China and its efforts, and you've actually gone out to praise China for cutting its debt, you've actually praised China for opening up its markets, but as China continues to evolve, and I know you're very focused about risk, and you keep saying that all the time, what is the biggest risk you see facing China? What could possibly go wrong?
There is a debt economic restructuring that is going on in China. That means that a lot of the parts of the economy have got to be worked through and restructured. Okay, not only the debts, but the economy has got to be worked through and restructured. So the ability to stimulate and to deal with that well is, I think, China's biggest risk. To happen at the same time as then there's these external conflicts. The external conflicts being in trade, so the trade is a net negative on the economy. And then also you have the technology being a net negative on the economy. Those are net negatives on the economy. They are the things that China has to work through. Over my years, I've been through many cycles, economic cycles, that have been in the United States. I saw 4 times that the United States had big debt crises. I've seen them happen all around the world. 4 major big debt crises. What China has is the ability to coordinate monetary policy and fiscal policy, and it has a level of interest rates and can use quantitative easing if it comes down. It has tools for dealing with these things that the rest of the world is largely...
So you're not concerned about a debt crisis in China?
No, I'm not concerned about a debt crisis in China. In the way that you would mean that there would be lots of debt defaults and it takes it down and all of that. No, I'm not concerned about that because of the ability of monetary policy and fiscal policy, and also because of the understanding that exists in China. The economic policy leaders have been through the debt restructurings that happened in the 90s with Zhu Rongji had to do a lot of debt restructuring. Most of those people who were leading that went through that policy. So they have the understanding. Think about the United States debt crisis or the 2008 financial crisis. It happened, they did certain things, and it went away. Okay, if they did those certain things earlier, we wouldn't have had that. Okay, so now, because they managed to make it go away, because you can print money and you can restructure debts, there's a lot of leeway. I wrote a debt book that looked at the last 100 years, all debt crises, and that's the lesson. They control the money, they control the balance sheet, they control fiscal and monetary policy. That means they have a capacity to do that. On the other hand, the economy, you asked me about the risks, the stimulating those older parts of the economy, or even, let's say, the real estate sector, which has been such an important part of the Chinese, that can't continue to grow and operate the way it is. That has implications in terms of slowing the economy, has implications on what that means for the investors. Chinese investors have a lot of money in real estate and they have a lot of money in cash. If that doesn't do as well, that is a risk. So it's up to those who run economic policy to deal with those challenges well. I'm not saying they're easy challenges, but I'm saying when you look at the world, those are those challenges which they have more control over. And then you look at the European challenges, and then you look at the United States challenges in terms of that question. We in the United States face very big challenges. Europe faces challenges. Japan faces challenges. I could rattle those off. So when thinking about the portfolio, one has to think about how to create that diversification and that balance.
Let's talk about the external situation, because the protests we're seeing in Hong Kong has greatly disrupted businesses, transportation, and even the airport. How big a threat do you see Hong Kong to the future progress of China?
It's gone beyond a demonstration to a revolution in Hong Kong, basically. In other words, I think we're in a situation that's a difficult situation. Demonstrations are for the purpose of protesting something, an expression of protesting. We're now dealing with a situation of possibly almost a revolutionary, bring the government down kind of thing and bring that system down by the people. That's a very difficult situation for Hong Kong.
How big a risk is that for China?
I think it's a medium-sized risk. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's a 3 or 4 in terms of the size risk. It's difficult, I imagine. And I'm not a geopolitical expert. So, but I would imagine it's a difficult situation because it puts China in a difficult position to either have that continue or to intervene. Both of those are difficult choices. So I don't, beyond that, I don't know. But to put it in perspective, Hong Kong is still a small, tiny part of what's going on in China. So when I say it's a 3 or a 4 in terms of affecting the Chinese economy, I don't think it's going to be a big effect on the Chinese economy. It's a disruptive, it might have global geopolitical implications that I don't know about that can extend beyond that. But it's a tiny place in a very big, vibrant economy.
Don't go away, coming up next.
I was so broke, I had to borrow $4,000 from my dad to help to pay for my family expenses. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now that changed my approach to life.
Managing Asia, we'll be right back. Hedge fund titan Ray Dalio plays by his own rules, which he calls principles. Continuing our exclusive interview with the billionaire founder of Bridgewater Associates, I sought to find out what drives a man who created the world's biggest hedge fund.
Meaningful work and meaningful relationships. To be on a mission, I think those two things combined. To be on a mission, to be great, to excellence, and in that process, to have thoughtful disagreement, the ability to have independent thinking and bring in independent thinkers who disagree with you, and to be able to be radically truthful and transparent in that disagreement so you can get beyond the disagreement and have an idea meritocracy of how to do well. That's my meaningful work. And in the process, to develop meaningful relationships. I'm 70 years old now, and now I can reflect back. This is my year of reflection. One of the reasons.
This is your year of reflection.
This is my year of I can reflect on 70 years. That's why I put out the book of these principles I've accumulated over a period of time. And then I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting. And the reason I'm here in Singapore is I brought my family to Singapore to meet my old friends of Singapore, because when I look back on those years, the meaningful relationships is the most important thing above all else. So I love the game. I love the meaningful work of the game, to be excellent and to have that passion. And at the same time, it's so important to have the meaningful relationships that to be good with each other and to help each other, and then to look back that on hugging each other and saying that was great. Because the real question is, what is life about? What is work about? What is work about? Okay? If work is just about the money, there needs to be enough money to take care of your family and to be able to do the basic things and so on. But money has diminishing returns, and for me it's had diminishing returns for a long time. For a long time I've not been working for the money. So for me it's the notion of that meaningful work and that meaningful relationship to personally evolve and to contribute to evolution.
7 years after you founded Bridgewater, you made a wrong bet on the markets. You lost everything financially. You had to lay off everyone in the company, but yet you say it was the best thing that ever happened to you. Why? Was it a life-changing moment?
Yes, because, I mean, look, first of all, if you're not pushing the limits, you're like in skiing or something, if you're not pushing the limits, you're not growing. And the thing that I learned the most is humility. I had an audaciousness. In other words, I want to...
you thought you were invincible.
In order to be successful in the markets, you have to be an independent thinker. That means you have to bet against the consensus and be right. That's very difficult, right? So in 1980, I calculated that American banks had lent much more to emerging countries than those countries could pay back, and we were going to have a debt crisis. Then we had the debt defaults, and I thought it was going to bring the economy down. That was the exact bottom in the stock market, and I was wrong. I think we had 8 people or something, and I had to let those people go, and I was down to me, and I was so broke, I had to borrow $4,000 from my dad to help to pay for my family expenses. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. One of the best things, I guess, next to my marriage and my kids, but one of the best things that happened, because it made me think, how do I know I'm right? Okay, to be able to have an opinion. Now that changed my approach to life. I wanted to find the smartest people I could who disagreed with me, and to understand their reasoning and to work things through. I learned diversification. The key to my success has been much more on my knowing how to deal with my not knowing than it's been due to anything I know. Right? Because what we don't know is much greater than what we do know. And so that made the change. So I started to realize, what don't I know and how do I deal with my not knowing well? And it was through that I learned how to have this thoughtful disagreement to get the better answers and learn well, and how to diversify my bets in a way that it produced my better return to risk ratio. That discovery was the key to Bridgewater's success.
What is Ray Dalio like as the boss? What principles do you live by?
I live by the principles that I wrote in the book, which is...
what's top on that list?
Idea meritocracy, that you always have the right, anybody I'm working with always has the right to question anything, the right to the opinion, that you have to have an idea meritocratic relationship, okay? And that meaningful work and that meaningful relationship is of paramount importance. I guess that they would describe me as having a lot of tough love. I believe in tough love, okay? Meaning we're tough with each other. So anybody can challenge me on any subject, and I will, in front of the whole company.
So you accept criticism easily?
Oh, I love it.
You love criticism. What's the biggest criticism you've received?
Whether I'm understanding people well, their perspectives. The reason I love criticism is well, two reasons. First, it's that stress test of like, am I right? We talked about the 1982 situation, 80 and 82. Okay, I really want the stress test, particularly among smart people challenging me. Mm-hmm. That's the best way of me raising my probability of being right. Mm-hmm. And I want that also because you're thinking that. For you to think your criticism mm-hmm. in your mind is not good for either of us. I would rather bring it out. It's not good because you'll be alienated from my mission. If you want an organization to be really, really successful, this is the key to Bridgewater's success, then you want a real idea of meritocracy, because the person also on the other side of that idea of meritocracy will say the system is fair. How does the best idea win out? Okay, so the notion that you're going to have a process in which there's going to be that kind of mutual challenging, so that you say, everybody says, I have a fair system so that the best ideas are winning out. That is fair, that makes better relationships. There's also better relationships because all this hidden stuff comes on the table, and now you're looking at what is real and you resolve the misunderstanding.
Just to be clear, the person that criticized you, he still had his job?
All the time. I would.
Okay.
I give more negative feedback for not being criticized, right? But it's logical, but it's emotionally difficult for people. To me, it's very unusual that people don't operate that way. In other words, what is wrong with the radical truthfulness? Do you want to keep people having it bottled up inside them? I mean, all of that logically doesn't make sense.
You're 70 years old. To make sure that Bridgewater survives you put in place a partnership model to give employees more stake in the company. How is that coming along? And what are you doing about succession planning?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, you're right. To start something out of a two-bedroom apartment and to have the whole arc and be an owner and then to transition it well is a real journey. Fortune said we're the 5th most important company in the United States. Not just the biggest hedge fund, but the 5th most important company in the United States. That's something. So to transition well is really a beautiful thing. And I didn't really know how to do it. I started doing it, and then we're in this beautiful situation that I've transitioned the leadership to. I'm now an employee as a investment officer, and I'm a chairman. That's my
But as the founder, are you able to completely let go?
Oh yes, because it's natural. Okay, maybe it's not natural for all people, but it's natural for me.
You had no problems.
It's like your kids. Let's say you have a 40-year-old child, they're not a child, but a 40-year-old son or daughter. Okay, what is the greatest joy that you can have? To have them successful without you, to have them successful without you, right? Because that's evolution. Okay, I'm 70. I'm going to be different at 80. Who knows? You know, life expectancy is like 80. So you have an arc. There's a life arc. And to be in that stage of the arc, it's a joy to see others successful without me.
And finally, Ray, what would you want to be remembered for?
I don't really care about being remembered. I don't care about being remembered. I care about just in my very small way, contributing to a little bit of evolution. I mean, let's put things in perspective. I'm a tiny, tiny part. You know, we're all a little bit like ants carrying crumbs. You know, we're in the greater scope of things. So I would say it's as important for me to direct other people to other people, like to direct them to Lee Kuan Yew and to direct them to other wise people, so that they can look for principles and if there's a memory, but I don't need to have that kind of memory, but it would be to really help others to be the most, so contribute to evolution in a small way.
Ray, thank you so much for your time and for talking to me today.
It was a pleasure.
And that was Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, talking to me here in Singapore. Hope you've enjoyed the program. Do check us online at managingasia.cnbc.com for more exclusive leadership insights. Until next time, I'm Christine Tan. Thanks for watching. Hi. Hi, I'm Christine Tan, and thanks for watching Managing Asia. Do check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more from CNBC International. Thanks for watching.